We can define technology as all the tools that move humanity forward. Therefore, we can include any field that benefits human tools from computers to biology to medicine. We can define technological development as improvements and productivity increases made with these tools. At this point, things get interesting because every technology developed accelerates the development of the next technology. In other words, the speed of technological development is increasing day by day. This suggests that it will be difficult to find out where to arrive in the long term without worrying about while predicting the developments in the near future. In this article, I would like to share with you how we can be in the world as we enter the 2030s with the technological developments that may occur in the next 10 years. The technology that will be mentioned most in this article will be artificial intelligence. The reason is that artificial intelligence increases the speed of development in many areas. We can compare this to electricity in the early 1900s. Making any product electric at that time saved labor and time, bringing a major innovation to the market, such as electric drill, washing machine or vacuum cleaner being included in our life. When artificial intelligence is added to the products and services available today, it has already started to change many areas with its improvements. How will education change? Education is where I want to start. First of all, schools will change in the sense we know because it is very inefficient. A system where all students receive the same education from different teachers and send them home to work on the topic. Instead, imagine an order in which all the students watch the video lesson told by the best teacher at home or an influencer in the evening and work on the subject with artificial intelligence in the daytime school. Artificial intelligence understands the location of each student, asks specific questions to him and gives the teacher information about which student should tell which detail. In addition, it is possible to have a virtual future from home to school using virtual reality technology. On the contrary, a class-leading system has been implemented in America for 5 years with Khan Academy. The number of schools supported by artificial intelligence has even exceeded 1,000 in China. Comprehensive development of local content to the contrary class system in Turkey will find that before 2025, but I think this transformation take place in 2030. So my 2-year-old son can read elementary school in this way, and even if virtual reality (VR) becomes widespread, he can read it remotely within a school that provides this education in America or China. Hey Siri, tell me what do I think? Mobile phones at the heart of our daily use of technology and digital assistants will also undergo a big change. As digital assistants such as Siri start to listen to the events in our lives and add them to their systems as digital data points, artificial intelligence will provide customized information for us and make decisions and shop for us. He will listen and compile our meetings and phone calls, arrange our schedule, choose a special meal for us and coach us constantly to be successful in business life. Even with the computer-brain interfaces like Neuralink, of which Elon Musk is an investor, it may be enough to think only instead of saying what we want in the near future. In America, scientists have already begun to analyze electrical current and brain waves from nerves. When a person who thinks about the numbers is connected to this device, the device can turn the number the subject thinks into voice speech in a roughly understandable way. In fact, when various pictures are shown to the subjects, the device can roughly recreate the shapes even if it is not the whole picture. All of these started to be done on these days when we just entered 2020, so it is possible that we will record our dreams in 2030 and then start sharing them on an Instagram-like social platform. In such a future, our digital identity, that is, our avatar, will become as important as your physical identity. With the support of the artificial intelligence that we connect through our digital assistant, we will work on more complex problems, and therefore the weight of our digital identity will increase as we define ourselves. With virtual reality technology, we will meet in the virtual world, rather than meeting one-on-one in business life. It can be a standard for people working in the corporate world to work from home or work from a shared office close to everyone's home in 2030. Today, 52% of the American workforce work at home 1 day a week. The positive outcomes of this transition, both in reducing the costs of companies and increasing employee satisfaction, are observed. Who will protect our digital information? Our exponentially increasing personal digital information will increase the importance of information security. Even the key point will be to keep the information gathered rather than developing new technologies, because even though technological development continues, people need to rely on the system to adapt to it, and there is currently a major obstacle to it: quantum computers. Google has announced that quantum supremacy has been achieved in November 2019. This means that a quantum computer can do something in 10 minutes, which a computer cannot do in 10,000 years. As a result, let alone passwords, which are your date of birth, consisting of 72-digit lowercase capital letters, numbers and symbols, can be cracked in a very short time. For this reason, establishing a post-quantum security standard will be one of the building blocks of all this technological development. Fortunately, work has started in this area as well. Until this is the future, more people will be aware of the data they have created and owned and will try to protect this data. They will even hire companies that will do this job for them. This will be an area where new ventures will be born. Since local laws will also come into play, the local enterprises have a good chance. Although artificial intelligence speeds up technological development, one of the most critical situations we will encounter as a society will create artificial intelligence. That area is automation. Artificial intelligence will enable us to automate the work that we cannot automate with normal programming, and will be a competitor for the working segment, especially while providing returns to capital owners. Not robots, remote workers will take our workforce. It is also the subject of a highly heated debate among politicians, scientists and futurists. While a group thinks that some jobs will disappear as in previous technology transformations, new ones will be created, such as horse-drawn carriage, car mechanic or driver, while a second group will require a higher level of knowledge to replace lost jobs. In other words, 10 people working in the warehouse are replaced by 2 people who will program and control the robots that will work in this warehouse. The most striking example of this is the replacement of the cashier in the markets and the replacement of new jobs that program the sensors and devices in the store. For this reason, there will probably be a training barrier to enter new business lines in front of people who will probably become unemployed. These people already knew technologies come on all critical because it is not independent of the location for the world of work technologicalistic to receive training only in Turkey, welcomed the possibility of increasing demand from abroad a part of. It is like a Turkish employee replacing a Turkish employee. Finland is at the top of the list in technological literacy as in formal education. Since 2019, the country offers its citizens online introduction training on artificial intelligence, and 1% of the country completed this entrance training last year. This training has been offered to all EU citizens as of this year. Despite all the efforts of states, many countries will probably be unprepared for this change. When these masses cannot earn money and become unable to spend, they may pose a risk of shaking both the economy and the social order. That is why the order, such as universal income, where everyone receives a base salary from the work or similar schemes, will come to the agenda. This seems to be one of the main topics that will affect the political order and win the elections, especially in 2025 and beyond. Andu Yang, recently withdrawn from the candidacy candidate for the 2020 American elections, was trying to collect votes by proposing this order. Could we be knocking on the door of immortality? Another factor that could shake the social security system will be health. While the developments in the field of health will be positive for the individuals, the sustainability of the existing health insurance system will not remain. One of the main developments in the field of health is CRISPR. CRISPR is a technology that can change the gene sequence in DNA by taking advantage of the body's defense system. Gene replacement is the simplest way to cut off the problematic part of the DNA chain in the cell and place the non-problematic sequence in its place, a sort of debugging. In this way, improvements will be experienced in the treatment of diseases such as cancer or congenital diseases. A pioneer in this field in China, a doctor said that 2 babies a month ago were born, in which he changed his DNA. Editing embryo DNA is not yet ethically accepted, but design babies are already born with this technology. In the medical sector, there is a field that benefits from artificial intelligence, which is drug development. Drug development is a very long process. One of the main reasons for it to take a long time to adjust the shape and folding of protein chains in the human body or bacteria correctly. We can think of it as follows: reproduction of a drug bacteria we use if it folds the protein chain correctly. There is a critical number here, 1.5 C. This number describes how much we can increase the average temperature of the world compared to the pre-industrial period. This number is what experts call irreversible. We are now at 1 sea level, and with our current increasing emission levels, it is quite likely that we will come to an irreversible point in the next 20 years. But the problem is this: we are experiencing the biggest natural disasters ever in the world, even at the current 1 sea level. In Australia, more than a month of fires, flood disasters, increasing number of hurricanes and drought are the most critical examples of this. Let go of the 1.5 sea level. Even if we stay at this level, even natural disasters that we will have to deal with are daunting. That's why governments will play a role in limiting carbon emissions. Precisely for this reason, future generations can accuse Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping of killing the world. States will create incentives for people to move to more sustainable resources through programs such as the Paris Agreement and the United Nations 2030 targets. These incentives will lead to the spread of sustainable technologies. These developments will probably become the most financially viable solution in 10 years without incentives. How should your steak produced in the lab be cooked? Low, medium, good, slightly smiling face. Even if we put aside the persecution of animals for the meat industry, this industry has a huge impact on the environment. 13% of the carbon emission in the world is caused by these animals. That's why disruptive technologies are being developed on the meat industry. The first is meat. In other words, foods that are made using only plant-based proteins, but in the texture and taste of meat. In America, Beyond Meat and Impossible Burger are the most popular representatives of them. Those who try cannot distinguish these hamburgers from real hamburgers. These types of products have already been tried in chains such as McDonald's and Burger King. I think the next 3 years in Turkey to try this type of product. More than half of the population consume fast food. This is followed by meat grown in the laboratory. Instead of growing animals for meat, I am talking about producing steaks by reproducing animal muscle cells in a laboratory environment. Trials have already begun, and it is inevitable to become widespread in the next 10 years. Although it is not possible for the Muslim world to leave animal-based meat due to the Feast of the Sacrifice, consuming animal-based meat in 2030 may become a luxury like caviar for the rest of the world. Soilless agriculture. In agriculture, technology use and productivity increase in agriculture are the subject of today, but even this speed is not enough to feed the increasing world population. Productivity will need to increase significantly, which seems to be with vertical agriculture, that is, landless agriculture. In soilless agriculture, the plants are not placed directly in the soil, but in the soil in a plastic bag decorated with the necessary vitamins and fertilizers. It is grown in an area full of sensors that are monitored instantly in smart greenhouses. According to the data from these sensors, artificial intelligence decides which crop is collected on which day. The best example of this today is the Netherlands. The Netherlands has a small area than in Konya, Turkey, the world's second largest agricultural exporter after doing 5 times as much agricultural exports in America. So there is a huge potential ahead of us. With the widespread application of this technology, agriculture will allow rapid development and decrease in hunger and child mortality in scarce regions such as Africa. This technology can also lead to a reduction in immigration to the city. Here is another area where entrepreneurs can work. Goodbye, petrol, hello electricity. The next issue in nature and emissions is electricity because it is one of the main items of carbon emission. The main technological development in this field is the increase in efficiency in solar and wind energy technologies. These technologies are expected to be profitable in the next few years without the need for any government support. This means a reduction of solid fuel power plants, such as coal, in the medium term. There are also nuclear technologies that we have not yet been able to prove, but we will start to hear their names frequently in the coming years. Nuclear power plants have zero carbon emissions, but radioactive waste and past disasters are the biggest barriers in front of these plants. The first of these technologies is molten salt plants. Supported by Microsoft's founder Bill Gates, this technology aims to update the existing nuclear fission technology with a much safer power plant design and to make a nuclear power plant with minimized risks. The development of this switchboard technology is almost complete. The first attempt was planned to begin building in China this year, but is currently suspended due to the US-China trade war. It will probably start generating electricity in 2030. The main technological innovation is nuclear fusion, that is, the work of joining atoms instead of breaking down the atom. It is similar to the nuclear reaction in the Sun. Since this technology contains non-radioactive atoms, it is much safer in terms of resource and waste than fusion technology. However, it is very difficult to obtain the power density that will bring the two atoms together. Currently, several initiatives supported by the American, British and Chinese governments and the European Union are trying to solve this problem. All of them are trying to produce micro-plants in order to test the operability of the concept they envision, and their foresight is to confirm the concept until 2030s and produce electricity with this technique in the 2040s. If this issue can be resolved, it may be possible to produce all the electricity needed by the world at a much lower cost and with zero emissions. Besides electricity generation, storage technology continues to evolve every year. In this way, the battery costs decrease every year. This increases the adaptation of renewable energy and will trigger an increase in industrial production in countries with rural structure, especially in the following years. For this reason, initiatives to work on off-grid technologies are also open. The decrease in electricity prices and battery costs affects the car industry most. Electric car adaptation is below 0.5% in the world. So there is a long way to go in the next decade, and it is likely that it will significantly increase its market share in these 10 years, and even exceed 50%. The cost reductions I just mentioned will lower the price of electric cars even further, and people will switch to electric cars for purely financial reasons. Because the cost per kilometer of electric cars is about a quarter of gasoline cars, and when the first purchase cost decreases, it will be financially the most logical option for most of the market to switch to electricity. But the main transformation in cars will be on the internal combustion driven rather than electric axis autonomous axis. Autonomous vehicle technology is also developing rapidly with the support of artificial intelligence and sensors. Here, too, the most advanced solution on the market is Tesla's autopilot feature, and Elon Musk announced that Tesla vehicles will come with full autonomous driving in 2021. Although the cars with drivers will still be used in 2030, taxi, truck and buses without a driver going in private lanes are almost inevitable. Although autonomous driving technology will become fully autonomous competence in the next 5 years, I think that cars will remain in 2030 because I think it will take longer for governments to settle regulations such as responsibility and insurance. According to McKinsey's estimates, this rate will be higher in rural areas and lower in city centers. Considering that a car used in the city is parked at 95% of the time and the parking spaces occupy almost 20 to 30% of the city, it will be more logical to use cheap robotaxis that you can call on the phone, especially in big cities. What about flying cars? A future where everybody gets on a flying car and parks on their balcony, as in the Yetland, is not yet close. However, there are also developments in flying cars. First of all, if we imagine the flying car as a smaller, pilotless helicopter, and considering that they will travel between two stops just like minibus stops, we can say that the flying car revolution is approaching. Dubai plans to implement this concept in 2021. In 2030, Turkey also quite likely to become operational. The name of the new helicopter technology here is called VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, and the American, German and Israeli companies that have developed this technology have already received billions of dollars in investment. Uber, on the other hand, has already started to design the skyports, which I mentioned as a minibus stop for helicopters. Istiqbal is really in the skies. Hey, hurry up, we are going to Mars. Speaking of the skies, let's not forget the Fez. There may be historians discussing whether the space adventure that started in the 1960s will experience the golden period in the next 10 years, and whether it will be considered the beginning of the space age in the 1960s or 2020s a few centuries later. So much so that private space companies led by Elon Musk rolled up their sleeves to increase extraterrestrial human existence and embarked on businesses that have never been done before. Elon Musk's company plans to launch its first rocket to take cargo to SpaceX Mars in 2022. Blue Origin, the company of Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, plans to establish a space country around the moon. SpaceX made 13 voyages into space last year and built 2 of them with the world's largest ever rocket called Falcon Heavy. NASA plans to send a satellite around the moon and support its flights to the moon and Mars from here, and to begin the construction of this satellite in 2021. In the same year, he plans to move around the moon and go to Mars with the technology that will develop in the coming years after landing on the moon. India sent a rocket to the moon last year, but failed to land on the lunar surface, and they will try this mission again in 2020. The main point is that the mission that failed was only $141 million. In addition, satellite dimensions and costs have decreased significantly in recent years. Today, you can send your own small satellite to space for roughly $100,000. Using this technological development, SpaceX and several companies plan to set up a network of satellites around the world and provide wireless internet to the whole world. SpaceX has already placed 300 satellites in space. Isn't it very good that it is possible to connect to the internet in the middle of the Sahara Desert in 2030? For this reason, 2020s will be very interesting in terms of space. Boy, we used to use money from this paper once. Finally, let's talk about money. Blockchain-based currencies, such as Bitcoin, have brought a new banking scheme to the agenda, as it has taken the banks out of the way and allows confidential transactions. Countries that do not want to lose money's traceability due to blockchain and want to take advantage of other advantages of new technology started to develop their own digital currencies. China comes to their head and began research on this subject in Turkey. This trend, combined with the shift of trade to digital and the increase of credit cards, is likely to disappear in 2030, and this transformation has already begun. Starting this month, all transactions above $25 in New York City have to be made without using cash. The digital payment rate in Denmark reached 80%, and India overnight removed most of the paper money from circulation. If we talk about how all these developments mentioned will affect societies at a macro level, the number of people below the hunger limit will decrease but will not end with the effect of the increasing population. Subclasses will be enriched, especially in Africa, China and India, and middle-class growth will occur worldwide because China can integrate all these technologies very quickly. It is likely to become stronger than America in 2030. This is my view of the world waiting for us in 2030. Knowing these developments is necessary but not sufficient to be at the forefront. We will have to develop and prepare ourselves for these technologies. Especially, it will be necessary to prepare our children for these.